Morning, good afternoon, whenever you happen to be tuning into this. Let me just check the platforms real quick, getting through this really quick. Checking LinkedIn first. There it is. All right, story selling happening now. All right, cool. Okay. LinkedIn. All right, let me go back to LinkedIn. Let me check Facebook right now, real quick. Testing, Facebook. All right, Facebook, we're good. Let me share this out. And then let me go check YouTube real quick. All right, test. YouTube, what's happening? YouTube is good. And let me go back to LinkedIn, see if it's ready to go. Be ready to roll, LinkedIn. What's up? Testing. Test. All right, LinkedIn, we're good. All right. All right. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Well, recording this on a Thursday. If you listen to this on the Move Swiftly podcast, it might probably be a Saturday. Does not matter. The content of what we're going to be discussing today is actually evergreen. So it doesn't matter when you tune into this, when you listen to it, it's going to be important regardless of the time that you're living in, the time of day, whenever it is you listen to it. Make sure you take plenty of notes, because what we're going to be discussing today is something that I like to call story selling. You didn't know that was a thing, right? You didn't know that was a thing. You heard storytelling, but you didn't hear story selling. We're talking about story selling and understanding how the stories in which you're able. Well, first of all, we're really going to dive into the most important stories, which is the story that you tell yourself, the stories that you're telling yourself, and how that is going to dictate the reality of whatever situation it is you may be living through, and really getting a key idea on the do's and don'ts, and the positives and the negatives, and the things that are actually happening because of the story that you're telling yourself, and then how ultimately you're reacting and making decisions in the real world, because everything is built off a story that somebody told, and then they sold, and then they sold it again, they sold it again, they sold it again, they sold it again. They just kept selling their story, and it really boils down to what's going on the inside, and the stories and the things that you're telling yourself. So before we get too deep into the topic, let me just get through a few announcements here. First and foremost, West Palm Beach. Well, actually, before I get to the announcements, let me actually introduce myself, right? I'm just so pumped. I'm so pumped for the topic today that I'm forgetting to introduce myself to anybody that may be new to my world. All right, first and foremost, my name, Aswan Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do is I've created a brand, created a company, created a whole movement, a way of thinking, all right, in which we take the lessons that you learn on the football field, in particular the teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field, and you align them with businesses and business owners. So they have a staff, they have a group of employees, they have people that are coming into their business that are as passionate, as eager, and they have the mindset of a championship high school or youth football team. That's what we do around here. We implement a system for that. All right. So before we get started, like I mentioned, let's get through a few announcements. First and foremost, if you are in the West Palm Beach area and you are interested in free boxing lessons, you heard me correctly. Free box. Hold on, let me get this up here. Now that I got some video to show you guys now. If you're interested in free boxing lessons, make sure you hit that QR code that you see right there on the screen, And now that I got some video to show y'all, all right. I'm getting there. I'm getting my technology game right. If you're interested, just hit the QR code on the screen. And basically how it works is as we are building, as you can see right there, we are building. We having more people come out. It's every 2 weeks on a Saturday. Again, as more people are coming, then we might, change the times and stuff like that. But that's pretty much a basics of what you're going to get. I'm there working the mitts, and then you get guys on certain cones. And like I said, as more people come, then obviously, we'll make adjustments as we go. But that's really what that's what I enjoy doing. I love doing that so much. I mean, I think even this book, and I put a book out about it, but just when I was doing it at 9 Round, there was so many things that happened for me in regards to the work I'm doing now, being able to publicly speak, being able to motivate people, all that kind of stuff. So again, just tap in with me on the QR code that you see right here on the screen, and we will go from there. I'll get you all the information that you may need. Next thing, business owners. You have not yet, I need you to go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. As I mentioned in the intro, I am here to serve you all. My business is all about serving you guys and building out, creating systems in which you can use so you can establish a team of people that are coming in absolutely hungry and absolutely, running the business or walking into the business as if it is their business. So I need you to go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com to put in your information, and we'll stay in touch. I'll send you over a free guide that has 10 ways in which you can utilize, 10 things that you can utilize right now to build out a more cohesive work environment. All right. And finally, Patreon. Tap into the Patreon link, patreon.com/As144, preseason, regular season, or postseason. You can get it there, or just simply go to makeyourmove.com. That's MakeYamove.com. You can shop now. Can join the Patreon, can book me to speak, or if you just want to know more about who this Aswan Cruikshank guy, you know what? I need to refresh this. Because that podcast is, so this was the most recent podcast episode that came out just yesterday. The podcast comes out every single day, a brand new episode every single day. You can learn more about me, you can book me to speak, or you can join the Patreon community. All of that is at makeyourmove.com. That is MakeYamove.com. All right, story selling. Where do we start here? All right, let's understand a couple things. And the points about storytelling is a lot of times, as I mentioned, we don't realize the kind of story in which we have been subjected to. We all come in this world incredibly innocent. We're kids. I remember, actually, as I was prepping for this, and I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite authors. His name is Seth Godin, who wrote the book titled, let me pull it up. Actually, let me just do it now and pull it up. He wrote a book titled All Marketers Are Liars. All right. All marketers are liars. And if you look at the book, if you look at the cover of the book, what he actually is saying is not all marketers are liars. All marketers. In fact, I didn't even know this until this morning. I was getting ready for this. He actually changed the book. He changed the title. It used to be All Marketers Are Liars, and then he crosses it out. He republishes it. So it says All Marketers Tell Stories, the underground classic that explains how marketing really works and why authenticity is the best marketing of all. So as I was prepping for this and I was getting prepared for what it is I was going to discuss with you guys, I remember Seth Godin, who has done a ton of interviews. He's written a ton of books. And he's somebody that I think, again, is easily one of my top 3, if not, the best. I mean, I have Malcolm Gladwell, I have him, I have Robert Kiyosaki as my favorite authors in terms of this is what they do. They write. I have books out, yes, but these are like goats. I'm talking about goats, folks that I used to read their work, just intensely study their work before I became an author, so I could really establish myself, knowing that I wanted to be in business myself, knowing that I wanted to really go out there and sell, wanted to be as authentic. I wanted to live a life of authenticity. I wanted to be somebody that, again, first of all, I didn't have the luxury of, being someone that's normal, quote unquote, work some normal 9 to 5 or work. I didn't have that luxury because the name As One Crookshank is something that was always going to be rejected, or was always going to be looked at differently. People weren't going to learn it. So in many ways, I was forced to have an entrepreneurial way of thinking at an earlier and earlier age. But when it comes to Seth Godin and the work that he does, he teaches how to embrace that mentality as a privilege. I stopped looking at it as the victim. I stopped looking at it as, oh, it's a victim, because I very rarely can I meet someone that takes me seriously. Or very rarely do I meet someone that actually takes the time to learn my name and learn the proper ways of doing things and, all that stuff. But his work in terms of how he operates and how he writes his stuff. I mean, one of the first book I read with his is Purple Cow, in which basically, in a nutshell, talks about how to be remarkable in your marketing, right? If you're driving down the road and you see a cow, if one of them is purple, okay, you're going to stop and look at that cow. And he tailored that mindset into an incredible book on marketing. Also read Permission Marketing, which was like, man, now that one, I will say it, I will be bold when I say this. I think Permission Marketing was Seth Godin's best book. I've read a ton of it. I think that was his best actual book, because when I read it, it was around the time. Let me get a little coffee there. It was around the time where we started to see a shift. We started to see a shift in terms of things going from CDs. I was just literally just out of college. Matter of fact, before I didn't plan on going here, but I'm because the book is that good. I got to put it up for you guys. I got to put it up for you guys as I talk about it real quick. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. This one. Now, this book right here, I'm telling you right now, if you have not gotten it, make sure you get a copy. Permission Marketing: Turning Strangers into Customers. All right. So let me see if there's an actual date of when this book came out. So let me just use the copyright 1999. All right. So he was way ahead of the game. However, I read this when I was fresh out of college. I graduated college in 2010. It's around 2010, 2011-ish time. I remember it was the summer of 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere around that time. Long story short, things were being changed from CD to everything was going digital. Everything was going Bluetooth. Everything was, you have these iPads now. And now, it was to the point where they were making that transition from where instead of plugging in an iPad, you could just Bluetooth some stuff. Everything was streaming. There was still people using DVDs, right? There were still people, DVDs were still being sold. CDs were still being sold during that time. So the world was changing. And this is why I mentioned earlier that what we're going to be talking about is actually evergreen, because as you can see, this book came out in 1999. I didn't read it until 2010. It's 20 years. All right. No, excuse me, 11 years, close to 11 years until I read it. And it was just as powerful, because he uses the example in this book to where and this is the story. I'm living proof example of what we're talking about today, is when you are properly telling a story and you put the story in the right place, when you're properly doing it, it absolutely changes lives. Because the story he told in this book that I'm looking at right now, it's called Permission Marketing: Turning Strangers into Customers. It was something that I actually lived through. He said, when you're watching TV, if you're watching a show, let's say there was a show on and you watching it and you are enjoying it or whatever it is, and then that show cuts off to go to commercial, you are so focused on the show that you don't even like the ad. You don't even want to see the ad, right? That's disruption marketing. And then he flipped it and said, instead of disruption marketing, the best way to turn these strangers into customers is to get their permission way in advance, or to get their permission way in advance, to where now when you put something out there in their own head, you know that they would be interested. And I immediately thought of, there was my first job, I was 19 years old. My first job was at a place named Washington Sports Club. And this was, the gym is no longer in business now, but it was a gym that was in a very, very, very affluent area of Maryland. It was in South Bethesda, Maryland, right on the outskirts. Like, you take a couple street lights down, you're in DC, and you're in one of the more affluent parts of DC, Maryland area. It's a very, very affluent location. The gym sat underneath a condo. Actually, it was condominium. So it was our gym and the people who lived up top in these condominiums. This is why, like, it was absolutely shocking to know that this gym went out of business, because the location was perfect. I'm telling you, the location was absolutely perfect. They had people living upstairs. So it's like, oh, you might as well just sign up to the gym. They had had a pool in there. They had the steam room. They had towel service, everything. You know, I was working front desk, but I was getting prepped and training to become a sales guy, training to become a personal trainer, because at this time I tore my ACL. I was just wet behind here. So I'm just taking in information, right? So I'll never forget my guy, man, Boubacar. Boubacar was a sales associate there when he did sales. And I remember him actually right before a yoga class. It was right before a yoga class where he strategically comes up to the front desk. He has his cards, his information, and he attached them to a free yoga flyer, like a free yoga class or something like that. And as people are walking in, he's looking at him. He goes, "You going to yoga? You going to yoga? Here, take a card. You going to yoga? Here, take a card." So he's not just giving his card. He's also giving his card along with a free class for a yoga session or whatever it is. And that's what he's talking about when he's saying, hey, permission, get their permission way in advance by seeing, by seeing the movements that they make, seeing what actions that they're taking, seeing exactly what it is they're already doing. And then you present your product, and then you present your services, and then you start moving forward. When I read that, and he drew the distinction between, when you're watching TV and somebody interrupts you with an ad, no. We don't want to interrupt folks. We want permission. We want permission, right? And that's what it's all about. Completely changed my world. So when it comes to what we're discussing today and it all kind of ties in, to be honest with you, it really does. It all ties in, because when you think about stories and you think about what we're actually wired to do, all of us have been sold a story. All right. So when I was listening to Seth Godin speak on as I was prepping for this, I was listening to him speak on the authenticity of a person. And the question got asked to him. He goes, when are we most authentic, or how can a person be more authentic, or something along those lines? And Seth Godin explained, he goes, I think the only time, and I agree with this, 100% agree with this, because I didn't think about it like this until he kind of brought it up. But he goes, the only time that we're all authentic is when we're babies. When we're pooping all over the place or pissing, and we're just, that's the only time we're authentic. The minute we start to develop some awareness, the minute we start seeing things and we start, reacting to things or having gone through certain things, all of a sudden our subconscious changes. All of a sudden, all right, now I got to wear this. I got to actually put clothes on in public. I got to do all these things. And then it matters what type of clothes, and then it matters who I'm hanging out with. It matters this, it matters. In fact, just this past Saturday, I was at the park. With kids. I'm around kids all day, but again, it's at a school and it's an environment where every kid pretty much sees each other sees the same kid every day. They're in the same class. But I went to the park and there was a bunch of kids. And I remember I was talking to telling her, I was like, one of the things that you notice, or one of the things I noticed, and I was saying this, one of the things that you notice is that these kids are all of different ethnicities. These kids, it was a park in Boca Raton, Florida, and these kids were, I was telling them, it was a really nice park too, because there was a baseball game going on, and you had a lot of families out there and all that. It's like these kids will see each other and they hang out all the time. Like they don't see any issue whatsoever in terms of hanging out. Didn't matter what their ethnicity was, didn't matter what the gender was, didn't matter anything, what they were wearing, nothing. They just playing on the jungle gym. They're on the splash. They're playing in the splash. They're doing stuff on the swings. They're doing all this stuff. Everyone is just playing. Kids just playing. And then when you think about the way the world works, when these kids grow up now all of a sudden it's a problem. Now all of a sudden things, whatever gets said at home or whatever gets said in the media, now there's all sorts of things that come into a young person's mind that distracts them from being authentic. So when Seth Godin is talking about, all right, look, the only time we're actually authentic is when you're a baby, this is what he means. This is what he means. And it brings me to exactly one of the main things, all right, the main thing, actually not say one of them, the main thing that we got to take away from today's topic. We're talking story selling today. We're talking story selling, not to be confused with storytelling, but we're talking about story selling. And the main thing that we have to take away today is your worldview. You really got to dig in. All right. And this is not a one person thing. Trust me, I'm living through it as we speak. Yes, I did meet someone, and yes, there's certain things that are coming out of me that I actually didn't even know were in. But if I'm not having dialogue with a person who first and foremost is just a good person, a good-hearted person, regardless of how you feel romantically and all that stuff comes with it. But the bottom line is, are you dealing with people? And I'm not even talking about romantic relationships at this point. Are you just dealing with people in which are going to challenge you in a way where you're not seeing things within yourself? They're calling you out on your shit, basically, right? They're calling you out on your shit and saying, hey, you need to hold yourself accountable for this. This was your fault. Move forward. Again, I'm not here to judge you, and we gonna be cool at the end of the day. But you got to put yourself around a circle of people that's gonna call you out on your bullshit. And when you start making excuses, all of that is what I mean when I say world view. It's your world view. All right. It starts with your worldview, because your worldview is going to dictate the kind of story that you're telling yourself. I'm gonna let it sit. Your worldview. Matter of fact, let's get a full definition. Let's get a definition. Let's go back to the definitions. I like definitions, guys. Worldview definition. I want to make sure that the worldview definition is clear on the screen as we get into the next segment here. Worldview definition. Let's go. Worldview, a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. Okay, let's go to the definition of conception. An action of conceiving. Oh, yeah, they're talking about child. A formula of devising. The forming of devising a plan or idea. Let's go back here. Worldview, a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. The way you see shit, the way you actually see the world, and what your values are. What are the things that you hold incredibly important? What are the things that you actually say, look, every single day I have to do this. This is something I'm putting in the budget. This is something I'm actually doing. Your worldview, it dictates. It is the exact correlation and exact reflection of the story that you tell yourself every single day. And if you've gotten into the habit, all right, hear me, folks, hear me. If you've gotten into the habit of having a worldview that is so contradicting and so detrimental to your overall health, so detrimental to what it is you're going to actually need to survive, you don't realize it. You don't realize the kind of problems that you're creating for yourself until somebody calls you out on your bullshit. All right. It's the worldview. It's so important. All right. I want to make sure we stay on this for a second. I'm going to want to make sure we harp on this particular point for as long as I need to harp on it, because this is something that's invisible. This is something that is absolutely invisible. You don't recognize it's happening to you because you're not supposed to. All right. I'm around kids. I teach around kids all day. I've been around a ton of kids. All right. Ton of kids. And their mindset, and there's certain things that we as adults can become so incredibly frustrated about, because we think it starts challenging our ability as a teacher. When we have to, this is why having great colleagues is so important. This is why having great, especially if we're talking about the school system, why I think the transition that I made from fitness to education has been a very valuable transition, because it has made my business so much more intact. Because I realized, in the fitness business, in the fitness industry, it's pretty much eat what you kill. It's pretty much every man for themselves. They go out, they get their clients, and they develop their own knowledge, and they're basically able. So you have and I'll just kind of give you the scope of the way the fitness business works, especially the way I learned it, right? So the gym that I referred to earlier, there were independent trainers, and there's independent trainers, and then there's independent sales people that are there to sell a certain amount of gym memberships. All right. So let's start with the salespeople first of all. There's the folks who are going out, they're hungry, like Bubakar, the ones that I mentioned, who are actually going out and actively seeking new people in their world, actively going out and giving flyers, actively going out and finding people at the park, actively going out at table setups and doing 5K, setting up at, whatever race, or setting up at whatever game. And they're actively getting people to walk through the door, and they're generating their sales, they're generating their business, they're getting people, they're making sure they're calling their leads. I mean, Bubakar, every single day, he'd come in there, he'd take, so what we'd have is these stack of blue cards in which people would fill out, or whether it be online leads, whatever. Every single day I would hear him go in his they used to have like a little cubicle or whatever. And I would hear at least the first 15 to 20 minutes of that day, he's just dialing numbers. Hi, this is Bubakar calling from Washington Sports Club. They're just dialing numbers. And then there was his competitor, quote unquote. Her name is Valerie. I won't put her last name out there because Valerie's a common name. So her name is Val. I don't like putting, names out there, especially if we're talking about ladies. But her name is Valerie, and I'm not going to say the last name. So she was very much a perky, she was a very flirty personality, very attractive young lady. She was 24 years old at the time, and very attractive young lady. And obviously there was some pieces of her that connected to a lot of the ladies that were coming in to work out. But not only that, you get a male who sees a Bubakar versus a Valerie. I'm telling you, as a male, I'm signing up, especially you talking about a gym, I'm signing up with a Valerie, just off surface level stuff alone. It's like, look, you may as well put in some work there. You getting yourself in shape. You signing up with the fine, the attractive girl. It's like, Bubakar, I love you, bro. We here, but brother gotta make a move that's better, better for his situation, if you know what I'm saying. You guys know what I'm saying when I say that, right? So, and that's the way it used to be. And I used to be like the front desk guy, and I used to see both, because I felt Bubakar, that's my boy. That's, brother, black guy, and he's out here getting his paper. But it's like, Valerie's fine though, so if you one of these dudes coming in and you looking to join a gym, they might fuck with you. They might be, they your boy and all that. But I'm telling you right now, from the man's perspective, and you know it better than me, that they're signing up with Valerie just because she's fine, and just because they try to shoot their shot. Because they're like, why not? If I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna be getting in shape. She's gonna be seeing me, and she's using. The thing is, she used to be using her flirty ways to get guys to sign up. Which again, ain't nobody mad at you. That's just the way. That's just the name of the game in the fitness business. So I'm saying all that to say this: in fitness, you had entrepreneur-minded folks that were able to exceed in their entrepreneurial-minded ways. All right. So eventually, that long story short, Valerie left within the year. Boubacar is still, for all I know, is still, 10 the whole decade later, over a decade later, is still out there getting his bread, getting his paper off just selling gym memberships. So you just see the realities in terms of the substance, in terms of the stories, in terms of how he was able to generate his business because he was hungry. So that's the just sale. That's just the gym membership sales side. Real money in the fitness businesses comes from being a personal trainer. And that's when I really learned the business, right? I really got hip to the game because at that point, there were 3 trainers that I really gravitated to. Omar, who I'm still like, day one of my day one, somebody I consider like a brother to me. Omar, who I used to work out with because at the time I had just torn my ACL. He was still trying out to get to the NFL. The Arena League had just gotten cut, and there was a real strong connection there. So me and him would work out together. So he played at Howard. Then there was Serge. Serge was actually a linebacker at UMass, Minuteman out in Amherst, Massachusetts. And then there was a guy named Donald who played at Marshall, if I'm not mistaken. He was a Marshall Thundering Herd. That's 3 football players. And I had just gotten through my freshman year of college football at a Division II program where I tore my ACL, and I'm there thinking that this could be the end all be all. This could be my career if I didn't have plans to go back. And by the way, I have all of this written here in this book, Transferring D1, which you can get on makeitmove.com, by the way. But so what happened was, as I was in that transitional period, I was seeing these three former football players who I relate to and have literally the same story. Like all of us football players, if there's one thing we all got in common, it's that story, right? We all got the same story. It's my story. It's like when you hear these football stories, it's my story. It's the same thing. So anyway, when it comes to the fitness business and when it comes to me, seeing the fitness business and how it works, is that these guys have you have to have an entrepreneurial minded way about you, because it's your job to go out and get that next client. All right. And you're rewarded for being an entrepreneurial minded person to where I'm going to go get that client. And that client's going to be with me for I don't know how many ever sessions. Then I'm going to go out and get the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So you are rewarded. You are rewarded when you have an entrepreneurial minded way about you. Now, as I transition from fitness into education, now you're not rewarded. You're not really rewarded when it comes to this entrepreneurial minded way. Let me not say that. It's not that you're not rewarded, you are, but you're not going to be, it's not going to be recognized unless, like I tell people all the time, unless you have actual intellectual property that can be sold in bulk, or you just happen to be in a situation like mine with the school I'm teaching at. It's more of a private school. There's a business element to it in which you just can't do things by the book the way they do at a public school and all that. So, and as I've made the transition, the observation that I've actually made is that the team and the working together to serve the kids, that's so much more important. Like myself, being the person I am, being able to work with adults to serve the kids is so much more important to establish that than figuring out how to go get the next client, all right? How to go get the next person, how to go out and get that next person to buy your stuff. How you structure your adults, how you structure the adults and how the adults work together within the education system. That is what needs to be focused on. That is when things are going to be moving cohesively, and everybody can create an environment, like I said earlier in today's Move Swiftly Thought, that can create an environment that's not comfortable, but positively uncomfortable. Positively, okay, I don't get this, I'm gonna get better. Like just even this morning, as I was getting my coffee, there's a particular student that I have been struggling with during math lessons and trying to do this, trying to do that. And I got an opportunity to speak with some of the teachers that previously had her. And they were telling me, gotta do this, gotta stay on this, gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do that. Again, to me, those interactions are so much more important because working together, that's the biggest difference. And when you're talking about I'm bringing all this around, bringing all this up for a reason, guys, because when you're talking about a story and the positivity and the things that it can do, positive and negative for that matter, the things that it can absolutely set a person on a trajectory that's either positive or negative. It can take a person all the way to the top. I'm telling you, if you tell it the right way, if you nail it and you practice 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 and you practice, you practice, then you practice and then you practice and you practice and then you practice and then you practice, then you practice again, you practice again, you tell that story again, then you tell this person, then you mess up, then you go practice some more. When you absolutely nail the storytelling of it, man, you can take things. I mean, shit will just blow up for you. Blow up for you. And again, either a positive or a negative way. Hopefully, again, based on the work I do, hopefully I'm talking to people that are more so interested in it becoming or more so on a path in which the stories that they're telling themselves and the stories that they're articulating are actually going to put them in a positive frame of mind and a positive outcome, and developing that outcome, developing the way you say it. It's true in everything. All right. So that's worldview. All right. That's worldview. And I know I get really, really long-winded with these things, but just so we have a clear definition, worldview is what was emphasized in the home. What did your parents, what did your guardians, what did you make sure absolutely had to happen? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'll give you an example that make it clear, and then I'm going to move on to the next segment. Actually, telling the story is actually going to transition me into the next point. Is growing up, as I've expressed, and regular consumers, regular listeners have heard me talk about how much of an influence my mother had on me. And one of the main things that she would do every single day is she would always work out. Always wake my ass up 5 a.m. We're going on runs. We're doing this. I mean, back when we first found out that my grandmother, her mother, had breast cancer. She was first one to, go out there and do a 3-day breast cancer, 3-day, I believe it was like 60-mile breast cancer walk. And I remember seeing her after she did that, and the hug we got and the ceremony. And, again, my grandmother didn't pass away till about 10 years later after that diagnosis. But seeing how committed she was to raising the money and seeing how committed she already was to working out, again, it's not a surprise when you look me up and you see all the videos that I'm doing, right? It's not a surprise as to how he developed that as the important way of doing it, right? So as I transition now, understand that it was the story I was telling myself that created this that created this concept of move swiftly. That it created this idea, created this movement, because it's not just a book. It's not just an acronym. It's not just some cool logo with pencils. They say plus LY. It's none of that. It's an actual mindset, and it's actually years and years and years and years and years of a story that I have told myself over and over and over and over again through the dark times, through the good days, the bad days, all the rain, the sea, all the seasons. Again, a topic that I would have to bring up another day, another time, another conversation. All sorts of things were going on in order for me to actually land on a specific, plant my flag on a specific saying, plant my flag on a specific way of doing things in a specific way of life, and move swiftly was what I came up with. And it was a result. It's a result of constant storytelling that I was telling myself. All right. So just so we're clear now, let me All right, so how move swiftly became the thing that I plant my flag on, and the story in which I sell. All right, I sell this story on an active basis. I actively sell the story of Move Swiftly. I actively sell it to business owners. I actually actively sell the system, as you guys heard. Actively sell the system to business owners. I actually are actively imploring and constantly engaging business owners to adopt this system of move swiftly within their organizations. It's how I'm going to eat, how my family eats. I want it to be 1,000%. It's move swiftly. That's what we're rolling with, right? started with the fact that I was now me. All right. So there was some situations when I was growing up. I grew up in Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, 2-parent household. And, it looked from the outside, from the surface level, a lot of the things looked like everything was, look, I just want to just stay in Maryland. Your parents provided everything that you can ask for. It looked like and we're just talking about surface level, people looking at me on the surface level, went to some fancy school, you got your college degree, go back to Maryland, take some 9-to-5 job and just, be comfortable, live there. So when I told people I was moving and leaving to Florida, it presented some like just out of nowhere. Like, you're not just going for a vacation and, no, you're just going to pick up and leave and go somewhere where you have no family, you have no job offer, you're not seeing any, you're just going to pick up and leave and go. Right. So that people were obviously like, why are you going to leave the security of what you got built in Maryland to go to a state that you don't know anybody outside of an aunt that I didn't really see that much growing up, that she lives all the way in Miami. So why are you going to do that? Right. And again, for me, it was because it wasn't all peachy in the home. It wasn't all like, oh man, everything is good. And, we're this big habit. It wasn't like there was a lot of things working with inside me, especially seeing that, me as a football player, I saw things. I was able to we'll say it like this. I was able to compare and contrast what a championship team looked like versus what my family was looking like. And I just had a different worldview because the stories I was being fed, a ton of sports stories versus the stories that I was being fed in the family. And neither one is wrong. They're both, again, it's just what it is. It's like I was telling you on Tuesday about your history and knowing your history, knowing what history is all about, to where you're not going to get right history. You're not going to get wrong history. You're just going to get history, and you need to make history relatable. So what happened with me is I graduated college, and it was the time in which the NFL had its longest work stoppage. And my goal was to work in the NFL. I wanted to be an NFL coach, and I wanted my career to be in the NFL and all that. And I was willing to work my way up to coach ball in the National Football League or big time college and build my career out. That was obvious. That was obvious based on what I'd been around and the people that I've met and all that kind of stuff. That was obviously something that's very doable for Aswan. However, there was a shift. And this is why I'm such a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell's work, Seth Godin's work, and, the Robert Kiyoshi's work, the people that, allow you to see a system. There was a shift when the NFL, that seemed like such an established organization. Now I'm a young college graduate, and I realized, wait a minute, there's some major holes in an organization. If you are about to have, if you're in the middle of the longest work stoppage, like guys were on strike, guys where there was a huge fight. So that right there created the entrepreneurial mindset that was already within me. You gotta understand, I watch my dad every single day, wake up, go to work, run his own business. I watched him do that every single day. And he was doing it while he was on dialysis. He didn't even have a damn kidney. All right, he got the kidney replacement a little bit like when I was graduated high school. So I was a freshman in college when he got that. So throughout those years, he was doing that a lot for years, doing that. And you got folks now who can barely get out of bed for. But let me not go that. Let me not go that route. Come on up. Let's not go that route. So what happened was I just wanted more. Long story short, I wanted more. Because I saw what the surface level, what it looked like. But I tell people all the time, when you look at Florida, when you're a kid from Maryland, growing up in the Northeast, and I've had these conversations now that I've been here for a while, and I've met other folks who grew up in the Northeast. It's like, at some point, you got to step out on faith. And for me, football, fitness, that's my life. That's it. Football and fitness are my life. I love those two things with a passion. I love those two things. And talking about Florida, that's where it's at. You have the opportunity. Fortunately, my parents have been able to give me everything that they provided for me. And if you have the opportunity to go and make a move and do what you got to do, go, man. Step out on faith. Take that risk. Do what you got to do. So that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. And I got to a point where I was, man, I was like in a sweet zone. It was like Oprah calls it your aha moment, where I was working at a nine round implantation, and I was also working for the Miami Dolphins. So Miami Dolphins Foundation. So I was able to merge my two worlds. I know both of them were part-time jobs, but that was the dream. That was the dream. You got to remember, that was the dream. It was better than the dream just a couple of years ago, to where you have your NFL franchise that you're working for, and you're able to work in fitness and establish a reputation. It was so cool seeing, members from the gym. I was a lead trainer there, so members from the gym see me at Dolphin games while I'm out there selling, doing my thing. It was absolutely amazing to just be a part of making your dream come true. And again, I didn't know I had an aunt that lives it all the way in like South Miami. But, I was in that plantation area where, again, you're here making your dream actually happen. It was happening. It was actually happening, what you dreamed up in your head and what it is your goal actually was coming out of college, right? So as it became time to move forward, I knew I had to develop as a public speaker. All right, I had to develop as a public speaker. So went to Toastmasters, and I decided that, hey, this is something I need to be doing if I'm going to, keep this thing going that I'm doing, keep the work I'm doing if I'm going to keep it going. I have to develop as a public speaker. So I gave a great speech, and during a lot of these times, and I was told that I need to have intellectual property. I was told that by several seasoned speakers, right? So here's it. And I know there was a long drawn out way to say this, but when it came to move swiftly and how the concept got developed, it was because the gym that I was working at 9 Round, all right, the 9 Round gym that I was working at, I was doing everything. I was the trainer. I was helping clean up. I was helping sign members up. I was helping walking people through the workouts. And then they hired another trainer who was like really good when it comes to the mitts. And, you see right here where I have the mitts and all that. I wasn't able to do that, but there was another trainer that taught me how to, throw jab, cross, jab, cross, hook, cross, that. Like I was able to do that. I saw the way I was helping the clients, the members coming in, and how I was helping them with their mindset. And I was doing absolutely everything. And then, as always, I thought of my football experience, and I thought of the times in which I felt most like I was part of the team. You got to understand, when I played here at Stony Brook, I was a scout team player. I did make the travel squad, but again, for the most part, I was a scout team player. And just so you know something about scout team players, we're basically there to help out the starters and get them ready for the actual game. So at this point, I knew, listen, coaching is what I was going to be doing. We're going to be playing in the NFL at this point, right? And when you're a scout team player, the only time that you really feel like you're part of the team is during the workouts. There's a connection. There's a thing that I can go on. All right. Here we got fitness, we got football, we got scout team players who know they're not going to make it to the league. And the only time I can speak from personal experience is the only time that you feel like you're part of the team is during the workouts, because everybody's required to do it. Right. So the way it worked at Carson Newman, and the way it worked at Stony Brook, and the way it works in every single football organization in the entire country, is they break guys down into 3 groups. Stony Brook, we call it Group A, which were the skilled guys, the running backs, wideouts, DBs, those types of guys. Then we had my group, Group B, linebackers, quarterbacks, tight ends, these types of guys that can do multiple things. They had Group C, linemen, big boys that were expected to have different times based on their ability, based on their skill set and things of that nature. And when you had the thing that made it different is when you had a guy in Group B going with the Group A folks, which, by the way, that was this guy, Coach Tucci. That's when I first got to Stony Brook. This guy, Coach Tyler Santucci, he was a linebacker, but he was also running with Group A. You see what I'm saying? No, you see how he became someone that's like, all right, that's why he's a starter. That's why he's actually, trying out. He didn't make it to the NFL, but that's why he's one of the guys that's at least on NFL coaches' radars as somebody that could potentially get there. So I'm telling myself this story as I'm literally after I give a great Toastmaster speech, and I'm thinking of this concept of putting workers in the categories. And again, all of this is based off the story I've been telling myself and the story of things I've learned throughout my entire life as this is time to transition from Dolphins and 9 round and say, let's go build up your own shit. Let's go do your own thing. So time for you to do your own thing, right? So because I was doing so much of this 9 round, I remember presenting it on a piece of paper. So this is why I had skilled. So swiftly, the acronym is skilled, well-informed front team. So skilled is like that group A, those skilled guys that I refer to. Well-informed is like those quarterbacks, the running back, quarterbacks and linebackers, things like that. And front team is like that group, that offensive lineman group that are doing things and it's all based on what type of work you are. And again, you can go, when you sign up to the Patreon, you get a complimentary workshop and all that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, here's what happened is I started to realize how much I was doing for this particular 9 round. And I remember before I got there, before I got there, it was late December. Yes, it was late December. And I was watching, this was Ohio State versus Clemson, and Clemson had Trevor Lawrence. They had Trevor Lawrence that year. Ohio State had Chase Young. It was a lot of NFL talent just watching that game, and they played them in the Fiesta Bowl, and it was a close game. Was Justin Fields. Justin Fields was Ohio State's quarterback at the time. So you see in Ohio State, you see in Clemson, and they're duking it out. And again, I watched this Trevor Lawrence dude all year. Telling you, college quarterback, best college quarterback I've ever had. That dude was a dude. He was a dude. Accurate, on point, putting shit on the dime, on the dime. So there was a play, and I wrote an entire article about this. All this stuff is documented, by the way, but I absolutely love telling the story because we're talking about story selling here. So Trevor Lawrence he drops back, he sees nothing, he pulls it down and takes off about 50 yards. I'm talking about a quarterback who is that accurate, who's outrunning. He is outrunning DBs, man. Excuse me. He's outrunning Ohio State defensive backs. A quarterback who is that accurate, quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who we've seen drop some dimes, is also outrunning Ohio State defensive backs. Dusting them like, see ya, sucker. I said it does not make sense for somebody that accurate to be running to be that fast. So it was at that point I had, again, skilled, well-informed front team, and I didn't know where I was going to go with this. You got these people in categories. I was well, so what you going to tell them next? And then when I saw Trevor Lawrence do that, I realized, okay, what if we're like Tyler Santucci, right? What if I could teach a well-informed worker to go be a skilled guy too? Like I was, again, because this is what I was doing at the gym. I wasn't just skilled at developing boxing lessons. I also had enough information to where I can also sell the membership, so I became more valuable in that sense. Wasn't just somebody that could sell memberships. I can also help clean up too, because I've done that as well. So when I saw Trevor Lawrence do that, that's where the whole plus LY thing, lift yourself day in and day out, go and lift yourself, go and get yourself better so you can become all three. And that's when everything started to connect, because the next day I presented it to the owner. Then I wrote the book about it, and I have my former teammates come on my podcast, and then they talked about it. They read it, and they're like, yeah, I could see, because they're thinking about, when we would break up for workouts and what was expected of us. And then now we're in the working world, see what you can do, all of that stuff. And it came from what, folks? It came from what? The story that I was selling myself from day one. That's what it all came down to. So the question is, as I close you guys out, everything I talked about, this entire 53 minutes and counting, this doesn't happen overnight. It does not happen overnight. It does not happen overnight. When you're talking about selling your story, developing to the point in which you're selling your story, and you can monetize, you can speak, and you can articulate your story in such a well thought out way. It comes with time. You gotta take the time. You gotta put the time in. You gotta put the effort in. You gotta go and get rejected. You gotta go and get yourself out. You gotta put the time in, folks. Got to put the time in to make sure your story is relevant, it's evergreen, and you can say it, you can drop it on a dime. That doesn't happen overnight. All right. So I challenge you guys today. I challenge every last one of you guys today to go out, tell your story, go to a stranger, go to somebody, do something. It's people that love you, do something that's going to make it so you can tell your story. Because it's that story that's going to lead to some abundance, a beautiful, absolutely beautiful life that you could not even have imagined. All right. So again, main website. That's why I put it up here on the screen. Main website to check out. Now I have a story about how this website actually got started, but I won't tell it because I think I told enough stories for the day. But this is the main website to check out to dive deeper into everything I'm doing. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you can shop. It's on makeyourmove.com. If you're listening to this on audio, makeyourmove.com. You can shop. You can join the Patreon link. You join the Patreon community. You can book me to speak, or you could just simply learn more about this as one Cruikshank guy, or listen to the Move Swiftly podcast. All right. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.